Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Jurassic World Alive. Today we're talking about the top 5 common dinosaurs that you can get, and probably going to be the best, give you the best start to taking down the battle arena and making some progress with that, earning some incubators. So let's get into it. So the first one is Persepolis. You're going to come into contact with this guy, very common if you use the Pokemon Go. He's basically like a Pidgey in terms of commonality. He has huge health stats. Now mine's at level 18, so it has a lot higher health stats than you might find when you're at level 1. But it has the highest armor of any dinosaur in the game. This gives it a real good advantage because it basically turns it into a tank. It can take so many hits and survive your enemy's attacks. In addition to that, its moveset, it only has 2 moves like every other common type, but they're pretty good moveset. Vulnerability Strike will deal 1 damage and make the target vulnerable for 1 turn. And the second one is Impact, which deals 1.5 damage. And the cooldown of that is only 2, so you're going to get to use that every 2 turns. The damage output is fairly high for it, considering it is a tank. It has a 5% critical chance. Its speed is fairly slow, but it doesn't really matter because this guy's going to just survive the hits even if they go first. So Persepolis definitely makes it into the top 5. Next up is Velociraptor. They've changed Velociraptor in terms of the recent update to make Pounce have the added effect of reducing the target's damage by 50% 1 turn. Velociraptor is the fastest dinosaur in the game with 132 speed. It has such low health, but its damage output is huge. That means that when it pulls off Pounce, it can single shot other people's dinosaurs and knock them out in one go. The next turn is obviously going to have to use Strike. Sometimes you will get that Pounce in, get attacked, and then get striked, but the first attack that you get from your enemy will be so weak because it's reduced by 50% that you're gonna survive that. That's probably the best kind of scenario, because then you go into the next dinosaur with Pounce ready again, and you can hit them with a huge attack. So even if he dies on that next turn, which happens a lot with Velociraptor being that its health is so low, you're going to have knocked out 1 dinosaur and taken off a huge amount of health, so when your next dinosaur comes in, it's already got an advantage. Pounce is by far one of the best movesets in terms of damage output, and being that it has that ability to reduce your target's damage by 50% for 1 turn, just means that this guy can have low health and still survive some hits. Next up is Apatosaurus. This guy has the biggest HP of any dinosaur. Mine's obviously quite high level 14, but still has 3508 health. He is going to be another tank, just like your Persepolis. His damage output is fairly high. He has really slow speed, but that doesn't matter because he's a tank, so he's not going to need to go first. And in addition to that, even though he doesn't, he has decelerating impact, which means he can deal 1.5 damage and reduce the target speed by 90% for 2 turns. So yes, it's going to get the first hit, but then as soon as you hit them with this decelerating impact, you're going to be able to get their first go on it for 2 turns after that. Its backup is Strike, which only deals 1 damage and has no added effects. This guy will survive most other common creatures and even some rare types. In my early days, I was taking this guy into battle because he was taking down rares and having so much health left that he could go into the next battle and take off a fair bit of damage of that dinosaur too. My next advice is to go for Allosaurus, being that he is going to give your squad some versatility. So in the early days, you're probably going to come up against Persepolis, and Allosaurus makes a great counter to that, being that his 2 moves are Armor Piercing Strike and Armor Piercing Impact. These bypass armor, so that 40% that Persepolis has will be negated. You're going to be able to do the full amount of damage that it can do. The damage output on Allosaurus is fairly high. Mine's at 965 currently. It has a high critical chance, higher than the average at 20%. Its speed is pretty low though, so it's going to probably take the first hit, but its health is fairly high, so it's going to be able to have the HP to take that hit and still get to use its Armor Piercing Strike and Armor Piercing Impact most of the time. And then we come to my final recommendation for my top 5, and that's Majungasaurus. The reason I've added Majungasaurus in is because of this passive attack. Counterattack passive. Deal 1 damage after receiving but surviving damage. This is so helpful. It means you're going to get 2 times damage every time you get hit and use pinning strike or short defense. And the short defense is why I've gone for Majungasaurus, because it's going to give you a 50% shield for 2 turns. So whilst this guy doesn't have a huge amount of health, with that short defense giving you 50% shield, it's going to increase your health basically every time that's in effect, by 50% of the total health, giving you around 3,000 health. Being that its speed is so low though, you're probably going to take a first hit. And I reckon you're probably going to get 4 or 5 hits, including your counterattacks in. This guy is going to be strongest when he's up against somebody with a lower speed. That's going to be hard to find. But if you're going up against a real tank, like Apatosaurus, you can pop that short defense. You're going to get the first go, and then you're going to be able to get so many hits in as it's hitting you with that counterattack passive. And the final reason why I've chosen Majungasaurus is because its solo move is Pinning Strike, dealing 1 damage, and your opponent cannot swap for 1 turn. I quite like to use my Majungasaurus as my 3rd dinosaur, so I'll swap to it when you're up against your opponent and you need to knock 3 out. If they've not swapped for the first 2, they use the first 3. I will pull my Majungasaurus in and he will pin their enemy, meaning they can't swap to that 4th dinosaur, which may have a huge host of health, and that way you can get a little bit of an advantage with it. So that's my reason why I'm saying Majungasaurus is in my top 5. Okay, well that's all for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you have, then please hit the like button, and if you're interested in more useful tips, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Okay, well that's all for this video. See you soon.